Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Eberl. I am the group manager for the MS4 section in DEP Central Office. I'm going to be doing a very brief overview, just kind of as a refresher about PRP plans. So here on this first slide, for permittees within the Chesapeake Bay watershed, the 2018 PAG 13 permit, what's commonly referred to as the MS4 permit, requires permittees to estimate their existing pollutant loads and identify BMPs to reduce those loads within the 5 years following DEP's approval of permit coverage. The reduction requirements are 10% reduction in sediment, 5% reduction in total phosphorus, and a 3% reduction in total nitrogen. To simplify calculations, we allow permittees to use a presumptive approach. What that means is that you can assume that if you're meeting your 10% sediment reduction, you're also meeting your total phosphorus and total nitrogen reductions. The permittee's strategy to reduce your pollutant loads is documented in a PRP plan. So I know there's a lot on this slide, trying to summarize just what the basic overview of what a development of a PRP plan is. So more information, more detailed information is on DEP's website, but just as a refresher, most of you have probably already gone through this process, but if we have new folks, I know there tends to be a lot of turnover. Just very briefly, the basic steps. The first step is to determine your regulated planning area. The planning area is the urbanized area, commonly referred to as a UA, within a municipality that flows into the MS4 conveyance system and drains to impaired waters. Next, the permittee calculates the existing pollutant loads generated by that planning area. Pollutant loads calculated based on the land use or land cover in the planning area. And there's a couple different methods that you could use to estimate your existing loads. There's the simplified method that's outlined in our PRP instructions, or if you choose, you can do more complex modeling programs such as MapShed. Once you have your existing pollutant load determined, you need to select BMPs to achieve the required reductions that we just talked about on the last page. There's a lot of different types of BMPs that you can use depending on what's appropriate for your site and your municipality, things like stream restoration, rain gardens, infiltration BMPs, or vegetated swales. The load reductions for each BMP you need to calculate using the values contained in DEP's BMP effectiveness values document, or you can use the Chesapeake Bay expert panel reports. Again, whatever is appropriate for your type of BMP. And prior to approving coverage for your permit, DEP needs to evaluate the feasibility of the implementation of the PRP. Part of that analysis includes review of the proposed method by which the BMPs will be funded. So you need to identify in the PRP your funding mechanism. There isn't one particular method that is preferred over another. Just again, what is appropriate for your municipality. We have people using the general fund and other people doing things like stormwater fees or grants, partnership projects, or any kind of combination. We just need to see that you have a plan for how you're going to fund it. So lastly, the public needs to be given opportunity to comment on the PRP. You need to make a copy of the PRP available for public review and accept comments for a minimum of 30 days. You need to accept comments from any interested member of the public at a public meeting and make a record that you considered each of those comments. It doesn't need to be a special meeting just for the PRP. It can be any regularly scheduled municipal meetings you can have advertised as, discussion of the PRP. So lastly, PRP revisions. Once a PRP has been approved, the permittee may revise the PRP at any time. And the scope of the proposed revision will determine if DEP review and a new public comment period are required. So if you're only making minor revisions to the design of a BMP, you don't need to run that by DEP. You don't need to do an additional public comment period. If you have something like you were going to do a rain garden and you had one planting plan and some of those plants weren't available and you switched out for a different type of plant, those minor things, DEP doesn't need to be involved in that. Where you do need to get check with your DEP regional office is when you're planning major revisions, such as modification to the location, type, or number of proposed BMPs, or if you're changing your storm sewer shed map from what was approved in the original PRP. Those will require public participation and DEP review. It's the same public participation comments for the original PRP. You got to have 30 days public review, talk about it at a public meeting, and make a record of any public comments. So major revisions, again, that's something if you had an infiltration basin plan somewhere and decided that you had a more cost-effective approach, and another, you have a partnership project, or you want to do a BMP elsewhere and replace that BMP. So because there's going to be different calculations, we have to make sure that you're still meeting your reduction requirements. DEP needs to take a look at that. So if you're considering revising your PRP and you're unsure if the scope of your change falls into a major or a minor change, please just reach out to your DEP regional office to discuss the project. So after public participation has taken place, the revised PRP submit to the appropriate DEP regional office. In most cases, you're not going to need to redo the entire PRP, 1 or 2 pages describing the change, the calculations to showing that it's equal to what the original was, So if you're doing a complete overhaul, then maybe you need to redo the whole PRP. But in most cases, you can work that out with the regional office where you won't need to do everything over again. So you can submit it as an attachment to your annual status report or at any other time during the permit term. And important to note, there's no additional fee associated with submitting a PRP revision. So we have 3 different presenters who are going to be talking about their experience with PRPs. We have Londonderry Township, who's going to talk about the Conewago Creek Restoration Project. That project will restore nearly a mile of the creek, remove legacy sediment, and restore 15 acres of floodplains. The project will count towards 2 communities PRP, so this is a partnership project, while generating excess credits that they can use in future permit terms. So join that session if you want to learn the ins and outs of the restoration project, as well as all their lessons learned. And then our next presenter is from New Hanover Township, and their presentation will share a project schedule from New Hanover Township's pollutant reduction plan and identify common potential schedule and budget implications and considerations to anticipate in the implementation process. It will also review what may be required about revisions to their PRP. And the 3rd session is from the Borough of Ephrata. And they're going to talk about how their MS4 program has adapted and matured over the years to address requirements, preventing pollution to the maximum extent practical.